Karan, from the book, I learned that you're a lifelong fan of Sridevi. You'd be interested to know that when he was a teenager, he started a Chandni fan club. and, and he also had a video of the best of Sridevi, which he kept looking at again and again and again. So what made you such an avid fan? What was it about Sridevi that affected you so much?
Um, you know, for me today and every moment of Sridevi's is just takes me back to my entire childhood, my entire being, my passion and love for the movies, my absolute obsession with Hindi cinema. I think she has a large part to do with it. I can't recall the moment where I thought I'd fell madly in love with her. I was just her biggest fan. And I grew up in South Bombay, and that was a locality where kids around me weren't very, I would say they weren't very interested or excited in Hindi cinema at that time. It was in the 80s. I grew up in this neighborhood that you would know, Anil. I grew up in Malabar Hill, and kids in my area, they were a lot more, I think initially more interested in, you know, whether it was comics or it was like other forms of entertainment, Hindi cinema being the lowest in their priority list. I unfortunately or fortunately was just not very sporty and not very interested in everything else. So I just sat at home and watched movies. And I remember watching all of Sridevi's earlier works.
And the loss of sports is the gain of movies.
Is the gain of movies. Well, I don't advocate that at all because I think, you know, being sporty is all good for various reasons, not just the athletic part of it or the fitness part of it, just in terms of your headspace. But I just grew up watching, I remember watching her appearance in Julie, and, you know, and then went on when she made her big comeback with
Julie
Himmat.
had a small role.
Yeah, but Himmat Wala was where I remember going with my house help at that time to see Himmat Wala in a cinema hall, and because nobody in my immediate surrounding wanted to come with me, and I went multiple times and saw Himmat Wala, and then every other movie after that, and I remember literally dancing on a pot and a pan like she had, and this just my love story began with her, and it just never ended. And I remember my father was releasing a film on the same day as Mr. India. He released a film called Muqaddar Ka Faisla, which was directed by a very prolific filmmaker, Prakash Mehra. And my father was very hurt with me because on the opening day, I went running to see Mr. India. I didn't see my father's film. And then Kaate Nahi Katte became my anthem for that whole year. It wasn't a very, I'm sure, a very fun sight to see me dance to Kaate Nahi Katte, and which my father and mother endured right through that year.
Can you demonstrate a few steps?
No. You know, I would have till
Let's
I gave
make this video viral.
till I gave birth to my 2 children. I would have done that embarrassing thing right now. But I know eventually they're going to start watching these YouTube videos and just wonder what their dada is up to. But anyway, I just want to say that she just became like my entire being, like everything about her.
What was it about her?
I think it was just her eyes. It was like she spoke like through her eyes. You know, it was just everything from just her eyes, the way she emoted. She just became like I felt like she was talking to me right through those movies. I felt every time she moved and she spoke, she had this magical quality of just connecting with you. And she just seemed unattainable, inaccessible, and just the way you want your stars to be, you know. And I just put her up on that pedestal, and she became like every movies of hers. And those movies that no one else saw, I saw. You know, I saw every film of hers. And there used to be these big fights we used to have about who's a bigger Sridevi fan or who's a bigger Madhuri Dixit fan. And I used to take it so personally because it was really, and when Chandni released, like you said, it became my obligation to keep dragging people from college, because I was in my first year junior college at that time at HR, and just wanted them to convert to being a Sridevi fan just the way I was. It just became a personal obsession and a personal mission for me at that point of time.
Yes. From what I can see, that she started when she was something like 4 years old. Apparently, there's a reference to it. The book begins with that. Her parents had taken her and 4-year-old Sridevi to see a movie. And during the intermission, this little girl just goes up on the stage and starts dancing by herself. So obviously she was a born performer. And time she was 11, I've been reading your book. Okay. By the time she was 11, she was actually asked by producers in the South to wear a sari and be a heroine, which is incredible. And at 12, she was in a movie where she was the lead. Now, when I look at the pictures of her as a baby, I don't see anything exceptional in terms of looks as a baby. What was it, I wonder, that made these producers in the South see that potential in her? Do you have any clue on that?
Sure. I spoke to this lady called Saukar Janaki. She's a big veteran actress down south. And she's acted with, in fact, Sridevi's very first film when she was 4 was a Tamil movie called Thunaivan, where she plays a mythological character called Lord Murugan. And Saukar Janaki was a part of that film. And she gave me that first glimpse of her on set of the 4-year-old Sridevi. And that's the same question I asked her. What was it about her that a 4-year-old kid gets inducted in a film? And she said, there was something, like Karan said, something about her eyes. There's something about her eyes that she just drew you in. And she also had this inborn talent that she could follow directions very easily. Almost every director I've spoken to who have directed her as a child artist says she was very obedient, extremely obedient, and she could replicate what you did, what you showed her. And she could just absorb what you showed and produce exactly that, and even take it notches higher. She was not an actress by education. She was an actress by observation, ever since she was a child. So she would observe.
She was also one of the few actresses from the South who couldn't dance, who hadn't learned
Exactly, she
dancing.
was not trained. Not many people know she was not a trained dancer.
In fact, I asked her, I remember, and of course I had the great fortune of knowing her. And I asked her, and I said, when did you train in classical dance? And she said, sets have been my only training ground. Whether, she said, I'm not a trained Kathak dancer, trained Bharatnatyam dancer, I know nothing. I know how to dance in motion pictures, and that's what I picked up on sets. And it's amazing because actually if you see, it's not that her footwork was ever that bang on or correct. If you see Madhuri Dixit's footwork, it's much more like correct and technically on point. But Sridevi's face danced. Her face danced, and that's what always matters in cinema. She danced for the camera.
That's a lovely phrase, her face dance.
She danced for camera. She didn't dance for you to give her an award in classical dance. She danced to woo you and just make you appreciate just that expression that she brought to the table.
That's why in my book I say that when Madhuri danced, we danced. When Sridevi danced, we watched. Because that is what she was doing. For Madhuri, dance was upasana. It is something very sacred for her. For Sridevi, it was upabhog, enjoyment. She was just enjoying herself on screen.
But the kind of life she led, starting so young and then becoming a lead actress at 12 and so on, she really didn't have any childhood at all. You refer to it in the book a bit, but I wonder what kind of deep psychological impact it had on her, because she had no childhood. Karan, any theories on that?
I can't say that, I know enough about her state of mind for me to understand what she went through, but I could see that for her world was the film set, was the movies, was not even the people in the movies, it was just her relationship with the camera, Anil. It was like she had this switch on, switch off, which I'm sure Satyarth has written in the book as well, because I've seen it up close. And it is something that, you think that you've heard it as legend goes in the movies, that Sridevi had this switch on, switch off, but it was just that. It's like whatever she did, she conserved her energy only for that moment that had to be captured on celluloid. She gave it her all, and she became just completely another person when the camera went off. She would just sink into her chair and be quiet, not talk. She also, and initially there was a lot, I don't think she was comfortable just in her mother tongue and the languages that she'd performed with down south. So she wouldn't really communicate with you because Hindi was something she was grappling with and English was not her, her strength at that time. So I think she just kept to herself. So I'm sure that it was a lonely life because, when you have just a relationship with the movies you do and the relationship you have with the camera and nothing else, I'm sure that leaves you with lots of thoughts floating in your head. And, inherently creative people are lonely people. But I think she just had a very singular relationship with the camera. Like, I feel like the camera was her best friend. And when I saw her up close on sets, and she did a film for my father called Gumrah, and I used to go on the sets all the time. and just stand there like a bystander and a fan.
Did
just
you ever
obsessed.
study?
Yes, I did. I
Because your obsession seems to have been total.
I'm Gemini, so there are two of me. One of mine was nose deep into my books because I was no one would believe it, but I was a topper in school and college. But the only extracurricular activity of mine was watching movies, and a large part of that was just studying Sridevi. And every time my father had an outdoor, I remember I went to Mauritius. I went through that entire film. I think I was on the set more than Mahesh Bhatt was. He was the director, and I think I was just there all through the making of that film, just standing quietly watching her and studying her and just obsessively wanting to get. I was so dying to be her best friend. I tried everything. I used to go and sit next to her, talk to her, tell her all about but she was just quiet, always quiet. And she just took compliments or any kind of adulation just the way she would treat silence, like it wouldn't bother her.
In fact, I think also it had to do with her language problem because, as you say, Hindi was something she was learning on the sets kind of thing. And English, because she didn't go to school, she didn't learn English. And so she knew only South Indian languages. So it was very difficult for her to communicate. And the media got to know her by this sentence, ask mother. Because any question directed to her, mother would always be there. So she'd say, ask mother.
Well, I think that was blown out of proportion. Initially, it was one interview she said it in, and it became Ask Mummy, became like the thing. It was just to, I think, just kind of we made it into because she never communicated with anyone, and she didn't like do any interviews to that extent. But I think that she pretty much knew what she was doing on her own. I think, sometimes, when. And that's the thing about Sridevi is that, and Satyarth says she's an actor by observation, I completely agree with that. She's amazing what she can absorb from your body language. Like she'll notice you, observe you. She was the best mimic in the world. She could just mimic anything and anything at all because it was just observation. And she's the only actor from the 80s and 90s who had upped her craft because of observation. When she performed in English Winglish after a 15-year sabbatical from the movies, her craft was upped. She had actually absorbed herself into the syntax of cinema at that time. And when she performed...
You're saying she was not stuck in her time.
Not at all. Yeah. And there are many actors who don't seem to get out of of that zone that they were great in at one point of time. But she knew how to face the camera as an actor in 2012. She just knew it. When I watched that film, English Winglish, of course, huge contribution of the writing and Gauri Shinde's brilliant direction in that film. But it was just the way she... Because you could tell that through those 15 years, she had watched every single English, international, Hindi, other regional languages. She used to see all the movies. She had observed the craft. She had a long chat with me about Meryl Streep once. I remember we were having dinner, and I told her what a big Meryl Streep fan I was and am. And she had such a voluminous chat with her. I've never spoken so much to Sridevi in my life. But she really loved Meryl Streep. And I went back so impressed that she had watched the films, studied her nuances, understood her motivations, absorbed them, and even emulated them. Not that she went to film school, not that she was on film sets, just by observation. I would go as far as saying that Sridevi was a genius artist because it takes a lot of genius to do what she did in so many different types of films. And the other thing that we must know about her, she's a rare actor that was on top of her game in all languages at the same time. Whether it was Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, she was on top. A feat no other actor in India has achieved.
I think in all 4 South Indian languages, am I right?
Yes. And on top, like number one, as they said in those days.
And I was looking at the list of heroes. She acted with Rajnikant, Kamal Hassan, Shivaji Ganeshan.
In fact, if you look at her Bollywood sojourn, she's acted with 3 generations of actors. She started out with the senior lot, so the Amitabh Bachchans and the Rajesh Khannas and the Jitendras, then her own contemporaries, Rishi Kapoor, Anil Kapoor, Jackie Shroff, and then she also plays heroine to Salman and Shah Rukh. Yeah. So imagine a trajectory, exactly. So imagine a trajectory like that, and she was a leading lady, 3 generations. And down south, what is even more miraculous is there's this big actor called A&R, whose son is Nagarjuna, the big superstar. Sridevi first acted with A&R as a child star. Then, some years later, she became A&R's heroine. Then she went on to play his son Nagarjuna's heroine. So imagine that kind of a trajectory. How does she do that for 20 years? She was just going on. I mean, generations of actors would come and go, but she was right there playing leading lady. She would just keep reinventing herself with every decade. Like you so rightly said, she was observing and she was constantly updating herself. So you could never find fault. You could never say a Sridevi performance is jaded. It always looked contemporary.
Yeah, but you know, when you say that, we also overlook a very important fact that in our cinema is the hero who never grows old, right? Once the leading lady reaches a certain age, she's finished. She then can only play the mother. I mean, I remember in which film this was, but Wahida Rahman playing the mother of Amitabh Bachchan, right? Do you know which film?
Trishul.
Trishul. Thank you. So, she managed to reverse that. And I think what comes out in her career is that she went against the grain of Indian cinema in that way. And I believe in Nagin, she became a symbol for transgender. Why, I haven't figured out.
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, when you see Nagina, what is interesting is she plays a shape-shifting character. So she has these two selves. One is out there in the public, and one is this very deeply hidden self. That resonated with the LGBT community. For those who were still closeted, they found a screen icon who had these, and she was also like that off-screen. There was one public Sridevi, and there was a deeply private Sridevi. So that dichotomy for the LGBT community was that they could identify with that. That was one aspect of it. Also, Sridevi was doing on screen what the heroes were doing. She had become the hero of the film with Nagina. If Amitabh was trouncing Amrish Puri in a film, so was Sridevi in Nagina. So she almost became this androgynous avatar on screen for them that they could relate to, that here is a woman who is battling patriarchy, because for LGBT, patriarchy, toxic masculinity is the biggest hurdle that they face. She was completely trouncing that, and she was giving out a message that just embrace yourself, be what you are.
But how did she give that message, considering that she was so very sexy?
don't-
She was so sexy.
I don't think she knew any of this, by the way.
I had no idea.
I'm not sure
She had
that
no
none
idea.
of this was on her list of agendas, that she was going to be an LGBT phenomena. And I think she was just doing what she was doing and doing it to her best. She just knew that she had reached a position in time where at one point of time she dropped the sexy image and went into performing art, leading the game in Indian cinema. She stopped playing that card altogether. She
films like Lame and
no, even before that, where it was like, it had started in the late 80s, from Mr. India onwards, actually, from 1987 onwards, she just became the lead force. It was not that she's a leading lead, she just became a lead force in a film, and she didn't do any film where she was not a lead force. Even in a film like Khuda Gawah, which was Mr. Bachchan's major cinema vehicle, she had an outstanding part, almost equal to him, if not larger, in that respect.
No, but there's a story of Amitabh Bachchan that she refused to act with him for how many years?
Almost 5 years.
5 years. Because Amitabh Bachchan was the star everyone wanted to be with, and Sridevi refused. And what was the reason? She said, what will be there for me to do if Mr. Bachchan is on the screen? So basically, she didn't want to play second fiddle. And you must tell the story about Khuda Gawah.
No, what is interesting is then how Amitabh got her on Khuda Gawah. I mean, because she had been anointed as the female Bachchan, and she was very sure that...
Did she like that title, the female
It's
Bachchan?
interesting. It was patronizing, staggering yet patronizing. So it's interesting what her thoughts must have been. But what that label takes a new meaning when she refused movies with him and saying that I'll not work with him unless I have an equally solid part. So for the producers, they had found a tall heroine opposite her, and she was not ready to act with him. So they were like, what do we do now? So when Khuda Gawah was being conceived, and Khuda Gawah, the kind of scale, the epic magnificence it had, it begged the presence of Sridevi in that film. It needed that combined wattage of her and Amitabh to make that film really work. So and Amitabh was like, how do I get her on board? Then an opportunity presented itself when those days, filmmakers would, show rushes of their films to the media. It was like we put out excerpts of a book. They would show rushes to the media. So Roop Ki Rani was being shot, and Boni and Satish, they did a screening of the song Dushman Dil Ka Jo Hai Mere from that movie, and they called the whole media to watch that song. And she is, of course, brilliant in that number. And Amitabh was present there, and he was floored by what he saw. He said, okay, now I have a chance to impress her. So the very next day, he sends a truckload of flowers to where Sridevi was shooting. He was probably inspired by Rishi Kapoor in Chandni, for all I know. And it was Mr. Pankaj Parashar's movie. He's right here. Thank you, sir, for being a part of this. And she was shooting this song, and the truck came, the carrier tilted, and rose petals fell on her. And she was obviously impressed. She said, okay, now this guy really wants me in the movie, I'll do it. But she set a condition. I'll do if you give me both the roles, the mother and the daughter. When had this happened? When had a Amitabh movie had a leading lady playing a double role? It was unprecedented, and the industry went in shock. What is she asking for? This will never happen. But it happened. And Khuda Gawah is also the only film where Amitabh shares the climax with the actress. He and Sridevi both kill the villain together. That has never happened in any Amitabh film.
And the last 30 minutes or 20 minutes of Khuda Gawah, I believe, are the best part, one of the finest parts of Indian cinema in terms of mainstream Indian cinema. It's just that climax when she looks at him and while there's all destruction surrounding them and they're just walking towards each other. I think I've seen that climax about 50 times. I just went crazy every time she would just say, wo aayega, and then he just arrives and there's that music. And I think that the cinema buff in me just had I'm going to say a word that I shouldn't say, but anyway, everyone gets the point.
Which do you think is her best film?
I mean, I've seen films of hers, and I think Pankaj is here, so I can say that Chalbaz, Chandni, Lamhe, there's so many of them. Mr. India, Khuda Gawah. I think these were the films that I've seen multiple times, but there are films that her performance in Sadma, even her performance in a film that maybe no one may have seen, but I've seen multiple times, a film called Tofa. She's just outstanding in so many of these movies. I loved her in English Winglish. I think it will be always considered one of her finest performances. She's just incredible, even when films are not incredible. She was always incredible. But if I can't just zero in on one, when you're a fan of this level, then it's very tough to just point out that one film, because it's been an experience for you watching every film.
Yeah. But her initial career was all about her ability to dance and be sexy, right? And I think people remember her dance numbers, the songs she portrayed on the screen. And from there, I think in the beginning she was considered not an actress. People like Jaya Prada were supposed to be better actresses. So when
in fact, there's a magazine quote that says, Jaya Prada was the better actress, Sridevi was the bigger star. This is from 1983 from a magazine. So that was the initial perception. You're very right.
I remember very clearly Yash Chopra, Yash uncle, telling me about how she heard the narration of Chandni, and she had just two things to say. And the two things she said were the two changes they made, in the narrative. Because it's not that she was just doing the film because it was a major setup. It was around her. It was called Chandni. She had a legit input. And I can say this with myself because when I narrated a film to her that she was meant to do before she passed away, she had read the script. She made her notes. She told me few brilliant things that I wish we had all listened to. Because she said some really, really wonderfully, I would say, intuitive things, So she always had that sense. So I think that's why her movies some of them were always ahead of their times, in a certain sense. They made, like a film like Lamhe was very progressive for that time. It would be progressive in any time. But she just knew which were the films, and she also wasn't deluded at all. She always knew where she was not so good in a film and that she hadn't given her. Like once she told me, this is a dishonest performance. I can't remember which film. She says a dishonest performance. And she said it's not honest. And I think it takes a lot for you to have that sense of self. I think that she wasn't given credit for a lot of things that actually she was. She was known more as this elusive, exclusive, major motion picture movie star. But there was a ticking brain there that I don't think she got enough credit for.
And I think the one thing that distinguished her was her comic timing.
Oh yeah, exceptional, exceptional.
And there's a sequence in Mr. India where she does a
Charlie
Chaplin imitation.
And all of Chalbaz, actually. She's just fantastic in that film. It's like, anybody who knows anything about comic time will tell you that she was really like somebody who represented that timing like no one else did.
How much was due to Pankaj Parashar, who I'm not looking at, and Sridevi?
I think there's no film that can be made without the strong combination of a filmmaker and actor. I think it's really when a filmmaker understands his or her world and vision and narrative, and an actor contributes. Having seen Sridevi on my own, I know that her contributions are tremendous, but you can't make those decisions on set without the validation of a filmmaker.
But
And
she
also,
did
since we're talking about comedy, if I could just add something really important. There was a fearlessness about her comedy. Like, I remember speaking to Javed Saab about her comic talent, and he had a very valid point. He said, beautiful actresses before Sridevi, the problem was they were too shy, or they were not sure of making those faces on screen. They were like,
self-conscious.
self-conscious, that how will I come across on screen? Sridevi was a dazzling beauty, and she had no qualms making those silly faces. She was playing Chaplin, doing Hawa Hawaii. There was absolute, utter fearlessness. And because she did comedy with that kind of fearlessness, she empowered a whole generation out there of girls that it's okay to have a sense of humor. It's okay to laugh at yourself. Don't be ladylike all the time. Don't have to be prim and proper. Just be who you are. Embrace yourself. Have fun. Respect yourself. Celebrate yourself.
Do you think that Sridevi did something to a sari?
Did something to?
A sari.
I think Asari did something to Sridevi.
No, because
I remember, so you know that I don't know if Satyarth has written this about the challenge that Shekhar Kapoor took up from Feroz Khan, where Feroz Khan had her in a yellow sari in a film called Jambaz, and he said, I don't think I can make any woman look, nobody can make Sridevi look as beautiful and as beautifully sexy as she's looked in my film. And Shekhar Kapoor took up that challenge, and Mr. India with Kaate Nahi Karte, I think is like the benchmark of sexy in cinema.
I think Yash Chopra also put her in a chiffon sari.
But Yash Chopra, chiffon sari was a big part of his cinema DNA. But vis-a-vis just complete beauteousness and aesthetic, the way, the visuality, if you go about how Kaate Nahi Karte is shot, it's so amazingly sexy with such strong aesthetic. It's done in an immensely credible way. Like, nowhere do you feel like at all like, squirmish, or you feel like cringy watching it. It's just stunningly sexy, that song. And I think he completely took up that competition and really aced it. I think he won that game for sure.
Also, what is interesting is you bring up the sari. When she was playing her leading lady at the age of 13 in a Tamil movie called Mundru Mudichu, directed by K. Balachandar, Rajnikant told me this episode that she had no idea how to drape that fucking thing. And she was like, the director had a terrible temper. And he came, what the hell, we are waiting for you. What is going on? He said, sir, I don't know how to wear this. A 13-year-old. So imagine from that, she goes on to become an icon for the sari. I mean, how does that happen? That only Sridevi could have done that.
Yeah. In the combination of innocence and sexiness, which I think she had, right? The one person I can think of is Marilyn Monroe, perhaps. Yeah. Very innocent kind of face, and as if the face doesn't know what the body is doing, virtually.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I see of Sridevi. Now, Karan, as a director, you handle a lot of actors. What distinguishes a great actor from a good actor?
Immediate instinct. I think a good actor has instinct, but it takes a while for it to unravel. It comes over a period of time. It probably you find that instinct in a character on a film at some point of time during the film. A great actor has immediate instinct about what to do and what not to do, and how to kind of adapt your body language or say the dialogue in a certain way, or maybe sit or stand in a scene, or just adapt to the surrounding in a way that is so in tune with the character and the film. I think that's what I believe separates a great actor. And all the great actors I worked with, they have solid, immediate instincts. And all the good actors I worked with, I find that instincts are a tad delayed.
So, is a director almost superfluous with a great actor?
Well, I think it's almost like a great actor exercises his or her immediate instinct, and a good director understands the importance of that decision. and doesn't come in the way of it. I think sometimes when you are a solid filmmaker, you also very set in the way of your narrative. You're so entrenched with your narrative that sometimes you don't understand when somebody's done something that may be outside of the, of the narrative or outside of the scene or the moment. It may not immediately agree with you in your head, but you should understand the importance of what it can do for your film. And that is when you kind of agree with that immediate instinct of a solid actor and go with it as opposed to coming in the way. Because many a time I've seen that happen as a producer myself. I've seen that sometimes an actor has taken a very sharp decision and a director has come in the way of that and actually grabbed that scene or that moment from some kind of genius because of it.
Tell me, this film you were going to do with Sridevi, the one which didn't happen.
Yeah.
What was she going to be doing in that?
It was the film called Kalank, where she was playing Madhuri's role, and she had agreed to do it. And and she was prepping for it. We had gone and met her, and she was playing like a head courtesan of an area, and she was also had an illegitimate son in the film, and it was a layered. And she had one major song in it, and it was my big dream to actually work with her. Though I wasn't directing the film, I was producing it, and we had multiple sessions. And unfortunately, she passed away in February, and the film was going on the floors in April. And right after that, I mean, we just didn't take any decision for a month. And then we went to Madhuri, and she was very gracious and completely, I think, being somebody who admired. She was not only a colleague and contemporary, but someone, I think, even though they weren't friends, but at a distance, I think, as an actor, she respected the craft and the brilliance of Sridevi, and she felt this was her way of paying tribute to her.
Such as in the book, there's a lot about the rivalry between Sridevi and other actresses like Jayaprada and others. How real was that? And how much do you think it actually affected Sridevi as a person? Or was that all made up, as I think Karan suggesting? By
Yeah, I'm sure the
tabloid
media
press?
plays a huge role in creating these so-called rivalries. Of course, I mean, when there are two creative people in a same frame, you do tend to be competitive. You do tend to be, and I've heard a lot of actors saying that an actor is a selfish creature. He wants to come out to be projected as the better person, on the set or in the film. So I'm sure there will be a layer of competition no matter what. But the extent of these rivalries, the so-called catfights, I'm sure the media had a huge role to play. Though Sridevi and Jayaprada, yes, there was a lot of tension because they had been actresses down south before they even started in Bombay. And even down south, I've heard stories. I remember interviewing Raghavendra Rao, who directed them in Devata, which was later remade as Tofa. That's where they both shared space. And he said there was that undercurrent of, trying to upstage the other one because both had, and that's natural, I feel. Even with Madhuri, of course, I'm sure, but it was all blown up, I'm sure. End of the day, both were extremely civil with each other. They both had wonderful things to talk about. And when they came on Jhalak Dikhla Ja, that was one moment when Sridevi and Madhuri came together on screen. And I think they have left behind tons of footage which fan wars will keep happening.
And I can't tell you how happy I was to be sitting there.
I know.
Because I was the judge of that show. Yeah. And I felt like, like literally like I was watching, like I had the front row to the best performance ever.
Unfortunately, Boney Kapoor can't be here, but I think that's a wonderful love story in there. The way, I think the only word I can think of is devotion, total devotion. The way he looked after her. He was already married, right? But in spite of that, and it started off as a producer, wanting her to make a film, and then it went beyond that. So that he was actually doing things for her when her father died and so on. So basically really looked after her in a most devoted way. And Karan, if I may suggest, there's a film where I'm giving you an idea for a movie, which the life of Sridevi, but focusing on that love story. When you make it, give me a percentage of royalties.
I will, thank you. I'm going to give this a thought.
No, but don't you think that it played a very important role in the later part of her life? It stabilized her. It, she was going through all this emotional turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Boni, I remember speaking to Boni sir, and he speaks about her with so much affection and love. You can see his eyes welling up every time he talks about Sri Devi and those memories. And he had fallen in love with her way back in the 80s when he was watching one of her Tamil movies called Meendum Kokila. He said that she was doing this song, sitting. And what's interesting is that song, she's playing a woman who is a prospective bride, and Kamal Hassan has come as the prospective groom. So imagine Boni sees that song and he becomes her husband in real life later on. So very interesting fact. And he was for her throughout, even when her mother passed away. Her mother, that's a very dark phase in Sri Devi's life when her mother was diagnosed with brain cancer and she was taken to New York for surgery. And the whole surgery got botched up. It was a terrible case of medical negligence out there in New York, and she was all alone.
Actually, you should mention that to the audience.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So it was a terrible case of medical negligence out there in New York, and she was all living all alone in Manhattan. They had rented a small flat, and Boni sir was there. He made sure that he fought the case on her behalf, the
But I
medical
can't
negligence
believe that
case.
they operated on the wrong side of the brain.
Exactly. How stupid was that? I mean, the tumor was on the left side, and they operated on the right side of the brain.
Yeah.
God knows what he found on the right side. There was nothing there to operate upon. So, and what is fascinating is just before they were wheeling her mother into the surgery, her mother held Sri Devi's hand and said, "Make sure he operates me in the right place." And Sri Devi was like, "What does that even mean? Of course they'll do it." So she had some kind of a premonition, perhaps. So as I said, Boni sir was there for her. He fought the case for her, won it for her, and was his big support. Then, of course, when her mother passed away in the next year, 96, Rajeshwari Amma passed away, Boni sir was there throughout that whole phase. I think remember speaking to Bharti Pradhan, this journalist, a very veteran journalist, and she said, I think it was in New York where I think Sri Devi realized that, somewhere that very fine line between love and dependency started blurring for her. That probably this is the man who's genuinely in love with me, and she saw that.
Karan, to end, let me ask you, if you were older than you are, and you were really a contemporary of Sri Devi, and you were directing films, what would you have done with a star like that? A fantasy project.
Anil, for me, I can't even imagine that because, as I said, I've dedicated so much of my childhood just observing, watching, and loving her. I may have just lost complete objectivity. I may have given her possibly much more to do than was required of the character. And maybe the film would have suffered as a result. So I'm not sure I would have been the best director for her because I would have been too much of a fan. And I feel somewhere a filmmaker has to be very objective about his or her work. Because I think the moment you lose, and fandom can make you lose objectivity. And I think I would have lost complete objectivity. So I'm glad I never got to direct her because I would have given her a bona fide failure, which she did not deserve.
So with that, I think we will end this discussion. And
Let's give our
What-
panelists a huge round of applause.
what I would suggest is all of you should get a copy of the book, which Satyat will sign, and read much more about Sri Devi than we have discussed. Thank you, Karan. Thank you,
Thank you.
Satyat.